Hey everyone, welcome to Product Stories. This is where I meet and talk to some of the best product and design folks in the industry. Our guest for today's episode is Vaibhav. Vaibhav is a self taught product designer. He is currently working in Gojek as design head of mobility products. In this episode, we talk about various topics. We talk about transitioning between organizations, designing for Southeast Asian countries, one of Vaibhav's projects, and at the same time, we also talk about transitioning from being an individual contributor to being a design manager. I'm your host, Kaushik Mulli, and you're listening to Product Stories. Hey, Vaibhav, welcome to Product Stories. I'm so happy to have you here. When I started this podcast, I was really looking forward to have you on guest, and you were like actually one of the first few people I invited, and I'm so glad we are finally able to do this.
Yeah, same here actually. I'm sorry we had to postpone it for a couple of times, but yeah, I think I'm really happy to be here as well.
I mean, it's not a problem at all. I'm just glad we could finally end up doing this. But Vaibhav, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself, give a short intro about you and what you do, and yeah.
Sure. So hi, as you already introduced, I'm Vaibhav, and I'm really glad to be here. I'm an engineer turned designer, and I kicked off my career by starting design studio when I was in college. And then later, when I got into the startup world, I got a chance to work on both enterprise and B2C products. Currently, I'm managing the design teams for both transport and logistics products at Gojek. We currently operate out of Indonesia, Singapore, Vietnam, and Thailand. And for all of you who don't know what Gojek is, it's a super app which is based out of Southeast Asia. Uh, yeah, I think that's a bit about me. Outside work, I actually spend a lot of time gaming. I play Dota, Hearthstone, and the likes. I collect sneakers, and recently I have been really fascinated about interior design as well. I'm getting my room renovated, so designing the furniture myself and just making sure what goes where and how it looks. So yeah, um, that's about me.
Interesting, man. Like as you said, right? You have had like a very interesting career, which is like started with you having your own design studio, then working in an enterprise business, which is Locus, I'm guessing. And at
Mhm.
the same time, now we are working with a B2C product, right? So something which I want to understand is like what are like the differences which are there, in all three of these? Like how does a role of a designer change when in each set of these companies?
Mhm. Okay, yeah, let me try to answer that. Cool. So the design studio was more of like an hobby. Me and a couple of my friends started it because we were all really interested in design and development and like so. And we saw an opportunity in college. There were a lot of small startups and societies coming up, and we thought we could help them with design. And in return, we can probably earn a little bit of pocket money and buy high-speed internet to play games. So that was kind of the intention there. The best part about that was that we got a chance to explore the breadth of design in college. And I'm from an engineering college, so design was something which we were just playing around with. We didn't really have anyone to guide us or anyone to mentor us there. So we really got a chance to explore the breadth because we were into branding, we were into app design, web design, photography, everything that basically the client wanted us to do. But the problem there was that our learning was very limited to the depth in which my clients wanted to go. So, and as I said, there was no one to guide us. So we were just learning on our own. So when after college, I got a chance to actually go into the industry and work with people who can mentor me and guide me on what are the best practices around these things. I took a leap into that. My career actually started with two small stints with early stage startups. One was Talent Pad, one was Pepper because one was into recruitment, other was into grocery delivery. After that, I joined Locus, as you said. It was my first enterprise stint. And Locus is into B2B logistics. I was the first designer there, and I actually got a chance to work on their entire suite of products, which was really amazing at that point. And the exciting part that I liked about Locus was that we were designing for a very niche audience. Like we were designing for warehouse managers, logistics professionals, delivery fleets, and all which have been using very legacy software to begin with, or probably people who were planning everything manually. So it was quite challenging to design products for them, as it was not just about delivering the right features, but actually making it simple enough for them to starting to use, and also to make them comfortable in using it. Because that resistance to change, like however they were used to doing things, and someday someone comes and that, hey, why don't you use our product? So people actually have that resistance. So I think what how we tackled that there was that we went to these warehouses, talked to our users, and actually figured out what are the challenges they face or what they find comfortable in their current processes. And then we designed a product which really smoothened out the transition from this manual or the legacy softwares to how things should be done. And I think it was very interesting for me to design this thing because I had no references whatsoever. This was like a very novel product that we were creating, and I couldn't like see how my competitors are doing and then do that. So everything was from scratch, and it really helped me polish my UX skills, because these are the kind of challenges you usually don't get to do. Like in other companies like grocery delivery and other things, I have a lot of references. There are so many startups out there in the West and India as well who are doing these things, right? So you already have a lot of references. Your users are used to a lot of stuff, so you don't really need to revolutionize things there, because if you change the play field completely, then users will be uncomfortable. But here in Locus, we actually had a very different challenge, because you are introducing people to technology and making them comfortable so that they know that this is something that will increase my productivity rather than probably take my job away, was a very big challenge for us. I was in Locus for around 2 years. But then I think I wanted to do something different. I wanted my design to touch more users, and that's where Gojek came into play. Like, firstly, its scale is huge, and the wide array of services that Gojek actually has made it like a very obvious choice for me. But honestly, I didn't expect the surprise it had in store. Not only I got a chance to design products for millions of users in Southeast Asia, but also got to work with an amazing team, which I haven't gotten a chance to work in my previous company. So yeah, I think I've been in Gojek for almost 4 years now. I've seen the team grow from 30 odd designers when I joined to over 120 now. And the learning in Gojek has been exponential for me. I was dazzled by the resources they put in research and truly understanding their users and the customer obsession this company has. And not just in design, in product engineering, and even the leadership is really, really customer centric. And this was also a big shift for me as a designer, because I've always been a person who has been very excited to come up with innovative ideas and jump to solutions. But here, I think it grounded me a little bit. I spent considerably more amount of time understanding my users and understanding the problems in details before actually jumping onto how we can solve it. Um, yeah, I think also not to mention that Gojek has a great culture, and the opportunity for growth that I got here is literally tremendous. I couldn't even imagine to grow and take responsibilities at the pace which I did at Gojek. So yeah, I think I got lucky that way.
Yeah. So something interesting which I realized is when you're working with an enterprise product, you are almost never the end user of the product, right? So which
Mhm.
brings me to the question which you kind of touched upon, which is like, trying to understand the user's problem, trying to think from their point of view, and all these challenges which comes up when you work on an enterprise product, right? Because you're not the end user. How did you tackle them? Like, how did you go about the entire thing?
I think very honestly, designers are never really the users. We might be a small segment of the users, but we are never really the entire user base. So I think that's where research comes into play. In Locus, we actually used to go to warehouses and observe these warehouse managers. I actually sat on back of the delivery boys. We can actually make deliveries with them to figure out what are the challenges they face there. And similarly, in Gojek, we have like an intensive research team. They're based out of the countries we operate out of, and we do very in-depth research. I remember there was this product where we were trying to. It was called Go Transit. We were trying to bring public transportation into the Gojek ecosystem. So we actually went to a user's house, like multiple users' houses, and then we actually observed what their entire day looks like. Like when they wake up, they basically see when the bus is about to come. And this is basically for long distance journeys, by the way. So they take a Gojek, a two-wheeler from their house to the bus station. They wait for the bus, then they travel with the bus to probably the closest station to their office. And then they take again a car or a two-wheeler to their office. And what are the different problems that they face throughout this journey? Like it was a very interesting immersion for us to understand it and actually experience it for ourselves as well. So yeah, be it B2B, be it B2C, I think it's never good to assume that you are the user. You might be a small part of it, but there is a whole different dimension that you need to explore.
Yeah, definitely. So, another question which comes to my mind when I think about Gojek is like, Gojek is predominantly used in all the Southeast Asian countries, right? So
Mhm.
some of the things which can be challenging, which I can already think about, is like the cultural difference which comes in. Something. So since at the moment I'm also working for a startup which is building product for users in the US, but somehow I find it a lot more easier to relate with US culture or US users because of like multiple things, be it like videos on YouTube or like all the sitcoms we watch and etc. How are you able to do it for Southeast Asian countries is what I want to understand.
Firstly, I think yeah, culture has been a big piece and a big challenge for us there. And there are a few obvious things also. Like I think most of these markets are very price sensitive. Like the state of digital payments is not as advanced as you see in the West, or probably in India also. It's pretty advanced. But yeah, I think the culture is probably the biggest piece, and you put it very rightly there. I like to put there's this hostage theory of cultural dimensions actually. What it tells is that how the culture of a country actually impacts the value of their community, and how these values that a community holds near and dear actually impact the behavior of their users, or basically the people in it. And there are five dimensions there, but one which stood out when we looked at these Southeast Asian countries is individualism. So how individualism is that when you look at West, they rate super high in individualism, and India is somewhere in the middle. But the Southeast Asian countries are very low, like at the bottom of this individualism graph. What that means is that they have a strong sense of community and family, and they hold it very close to their hearts. Like these users are not really aligned to the I and me thing; they're aligned to the we part of it, and they really care about their community a lot. And all this really needs to reflect in the way we design. It needs to show up in your communication, your marketing, your branding, how your brand values associate with your users and everything. And I'll probably give you an example. When this pandemic hit, we wanted to motivate our users to wear masks during their rides when they take a cab or something. And rather than, we call this campaign actually Pasan Dari Ruma, which means message from home. And rather than saying that, hey, you should wear mask for your own safety, we created an angle where the driver's family, their kids, actually request the users to wear masks to keep their parents or their family safe, because these are the ones who are actually risking their lives to actually earn livelihood for their families, right? And this strong sense of community there actually helped this campaign to be very successful and to keep both our users and drivers safe. So, uh, understanding the culture and actually implementing it in your design and how you actually run the entire product is very, very important. Um, Another thing which is also related to culture is that I think people in Southeast Asia are very nice and humble. And I don't mean to say that people in other countries are not nice and humble, but these people here actually don't like to get into a lot of conflicts. They tend to avoid those things and tend to avoid display of negative emotions such as anger or frustration and all that. And we observed this when we were actually trying to take feedback from our users about how if the drivers are following the safety guidelines, if the driver is wearing a mask or not. So, like an easy way would have been to just probably create a survey form to get this done, right? But when we talked to our users, we figured out that there is a lot of resistance in them actually filling out this feedback because they felt that this will negatively affect the drivers or we would penalize them. So again, you see that the care part is so obvious and common here, that the users care so much that, hey, even though it probably didn't wear a helmet or didn't wear a mask, but I wouldn't want them to be affected negatively. And this was a problem for us because we were not getting feedback. So how we designed it was that we created a very friendly page, and we actually put a driver illustration there who was smiling. And actually, the angle here was that the driver was asking feedback to improve their own services and probably keep themselves safe and provide better service to our users as well. So yeah, I think these cultural angles play a very important part in how products are designed in each country. And yeah, these were just specific examples to what I've seen in Gojek. And yeah, I think apart from culture, language has also been a big challenge. And like choosing an accessible font across languages, which basically looks good, aligns with your brand, and also works well with your UI, was definitely a challenge. But that was probably the easiest part of it. We also had to ensure that whatever context or emotion that we wanted to deliver was getting delivered well across geographies. Um, this actually brings a very funny example to my head. I remember when Electrolux actually wanted to launch vacuum cleaners in UK, they blatantly translated their marketing campaign from Scandinavia there, and it's sounded something like "nothing sucks like an Electrolux." And I'm not sure, like I'm pretty sure that they wanted to communicate something very different, but this just points out the importance of understanding context of words, of culture, and then rather than just translation, you focus on localization. And I think our UX writing team and Gojek actually does a tremendous job at that. We have UX writers across geographies so that they understand the local context. Um, and our brand is actually very fun, and we use a lot of memes and a lot of pop culture references in our copy. And they differ across geographies, right? What is probably popular in Indonesia might not be there in Vietnam or Singapore. So we have copywriters and UX writers everywhere who understand these things. And it's not just about them being like a Google Translate to translate these things. They actually understand the goal of the UI, the goal of the product that we're building, and then actually translate it so that the context and the emotion actually gets delivered the way we want it to be delivered. So I think that has been an amazing journey to learn all these stuff, because I was not getting a chance to do all these things before.
Yeah, all the things which you mentioned are like extremely fascinating. Like I was honestly like very curious to understand like how, if you are designing for a country where you have almost no context about the culture, like um, generally something about UK or US, we still do know quite a bit about it. But when it comes to a lot of the Southeast Asian countries, we don't actually know, right? And yeah,
Mhm,
this was like super interesting for me. Um,
mhm,
yeah. Apart from this, one more thing which I want to ask with respect to Gojek is, it's actually the reason, like, how I found out about you in the first place, where I remember, I think sometime around this year, I mean, sometime around this time last year, you
mhm,
and a bunch of people from Gojek were hosting this show or session where you were talking about the different features you implemented in Gojek and the design uh, process that went behind it. And something which really caught my attention even then, and I can still clearly remember now, is you didn't talk about minimum viable product, you talked about minimum
right,
lovable product. That was like, that was absolutely captivating the moment I read it and the moment I heard about it. And that's kind of where you talked about the whole process of tipping a delivery agent or a delivery executive, right? I probably would love to know, like, all uh, design decisions or design process, or like how you went about the entire thing, right? I would love to understand. And I already know it's like a very interesting story, and I would love for the audience
mhm,
also to know about it.
mhm. Sorry. Yeah, I think hands down, tipping was one of the most fun products and projects I've done in Gojek. and we built it in a platformized way. So I work for transport and logistics products, right? But we built it in a way that it can be implemented throughout in food and all the other products that we have. And I'll try to keep it concise because it's a very long story. But let me get started. During the pandemic, we observed that our drivers' incomes actually dropped to 40% of what they were. We were getting lesser orders and they were getting lesser income, which was very concerning for us because it impacts the whole ecosystem, right? And since the likelihood of getting new orders and that all increasing was very low because the situation was very dire and everybody wanted to stay inside, we thought of what are the alternate ways we can actually increase these driver incomes. And tipping was an obvious choice. Like that, obviously, if the drivers get more tips, they'll get more income. But when we looked at data, only 6% of our orders had tips, which is super, super low. And also the tips weren't very high. It was very meager tips that these people were getting. Um, I think before jumping to solutions, we decided to actually figure out that why are these tips low or why are not a lot of our users tipping. So we decided to actually do a very in-depth research, and we figured out the reasons of why users tip and why they don't. And the two top themes that we figured out there was, the first one was that most of the users don't really relate to the essence of tipping. There were reasons like, hey, I'm already paying for my ride. Why do I need to tip? Or there are surcharges and the driver is already earning from this trip and I don't see a point in tipping, which was basically the lack of understanding where tipping is around helping people, not really around payment for the services, right? And the second thing that we observed, which was very, very fascinating for me, was that the digital tipping experience that we had didn't make the users feel good about helping someone. Like then we observed our tipping experience. It was like basically after your trip, you get the notification that, hey, you can tip your driver. You select the tip amount and then it shows a tick mark and says, yeah, tipping complete. But the problem here was that they didn't really have that gratification factor associated with it. Like if you're helping someone, you should feel good about it, right? So that was completely not that. This gave us two very clear areas to work on. First was the empathy part of things, where we needed to establish a personal connection between our users and the drivers, and to actually educate users of what the actual essence of tipping is, that you're helping someone out, right? But to help someone out, you need to care about that person and need to know their story. You don't really just say that, hey, there is this Nigerian prince who you need to help, right? You basically need to know that person, what they're doing, what their plight is, or what their challenges are. So we actually created a component in our tipping widget where we added like an empathy section. We talked about the driver's story. We talked about what challenges they're facing, how many people they're in their family, whether they're teaching their daughter, basically their entire life story, so that they can relate to the users can relate to the drivers and their story and the challenges that they're facing. And the second part was the gratification part, where we made users feel good after they've tipped. So we added a very delightful animation where the driver was smiling and shaking the jar of coins. We even added the sound effect to it. And the goal here was to basically somehow replace the missing real emotion that there is. Obviously, we cannot ever completely replace it. Like a person actually glowing up when they get a tip or feeling happy and feeling that gratitude is something you cannot replace. But we tried to find a workaround and somehow accommodate for it using motion design and animations and all that. And this all actually helped to increase the driver tips and the amount of people who are tipping in Gojek. We also ran a couple of other small experiments. We added a capability where the users can now add thank you notes for the driver, so that it's not just about the tip, it's also a message that you're giving. And to make it easy for the users to write this message, because if you just enter a text field, nobody is going to take the effort to write it, or very few people are going to do that. So we actually worked with our UX writers and created a list of 20-25 messages, small messages like, hey, thanks for the service, or you're awesome, or you're fabulous, or something like that. And we gave a button to just tap, and you can just switch the message, and whichever relates to you, you can just press send. And we've been doing all these things to make the experience simple also, and get a little more engaging and a little more emotional than a very transactional one where you're just paying money to someone, right? There were also small experiments which we did to motivate people to tip more. So, say for example, if someone is tipping 5,000 rupiah, we wanted them to tip say 15,000 rupiah. And how we did that is that we attached an incremental emotion with each of these steps. So there was a small smiling face with the 5,000 one and a really happy one with the 15,000 one. So we incrementally bumped up these emotions so that you know that if you're tipping a higher amount, you're making the driver happier, which people already knew. But when you see it visually, when you see that smile visually, we thought that it might really help to increase the amounts. And we were surprised to see that like our tipping amount shot up by 2 times, and like 100% bump in tipping amounts has been very, very helpful for our drivers.
Yeah, again, like, a really interesting a really interesting design solution for a problem, right? And
Mhm.
how you solved it, the entire process just sounds amazing. I'll actually go ahead and attach, like, the link of the case study also in the description for anyone,
Mhm.
who wants to, like, read more about it. It
Sure.
is, like, one of the best case studies I've ever read, and yeah, it is super interesting. I mean, really, really good work with that.
Thanks for that. Mhm.
Correct. So, again, like, moving forward with your Gojek story. So, one thing which I want to ask you is, like, when you started out with Gojek, you started as like an individual contributor, right? And now you have transitioned into a manager leading teams at Gojek. So, I want to understand how was the transition like, and what are the kind of
Mhm.
challenges which you faced during this transition? And how has it been? Like, I'm sure, like, with challenges also comes a lot of fun, right? So
Mhm. Yeah, definitely. I'll start with how I actually got into it. Because I was never really sure about this, to be honest. I've always been a person who looks to build stuff and get into research, get my hands dirty, come up with ideas, make UI, and I found it very challenging to let it go. So I tested the waters a little bit before actually diving into it, and I started taking more responsibilities to start. And apart from just delivering projects, I actually started looking at what are the problems that my team and the other design teams at Gojek are facing. I worked on setting up design processes to actually foster collaboration and so that the designers don't miss edge cases or any other important steps in design. I advocated for design documentation across Gojek. I built templates to help designers create better documentation. And I'm so happy to see that most of the designers in Gojek are so inclined towards documentation now, and they're creating really, really good documentation. And like the collaboration between dev, design, product, and business is super smooth now. I also got involved into setting product OKRs and roadmaps. I worked with the research, business, and product teams to set the vision of the product. um, I work with the design ops team to actually set like a leveling framework for designers. We call it Chaka. So it basically tells you what level you are at based on the responsibilities and the work you're doing, and actually gives you clear, actionable directions on how you can move to the next level or what is expected out of you as a level X designer. And all this, really helped me position myself better for this sort of a manager role. And like Julie Zuo said, like there is purpose, there is process, there is people, and people is probably the most important part. And that's why even though I was into processes, I really needed to get a hang of the people bit before I can actually call myself a manager, right? So I started with mentoring and managing one designer to start off with, like mentoring them and guiding them actually was my first elaborate experience to be responsible for someone's growth. And I worked with junior designers before, but working with junior designers and getting stuff done and being responsible for someone's career and the challenges that they face and their actual personal growth is a whole different ballgame. And I made a lot of mistakes along the way, but I made sure that I learned from them. And here I am, and I'm currently managing two really, really talented teams. And when I look back, I feel that all that was totally worth it. And yeah, I think that was more about the journey bit, but there were a lot of challenges along the way. And the biggest one was to make peace with the fact that a manager's output or a manager's basically result is how the team is performing. So in the first few months as a manager, I was very confused that hey, I'm probably putting in the same or even more hours that I used to. I'm working all day long, and I don't see any output. I don't see any numbers moving. I don't see any users giving accolades to my work or something like that, right? But then I realized that I'm probably looking at the wrong places. I need to look at how my team is performing, how my team is growing, how the culture is in the team, or what is the impact of the projects that the team or the people who are reporting to me are delivering. And when I started looking at it from that perspective, then it gave me a lot of comfort that, oh, okay, I think I'm doing a decent job at it. And I just needed to change the perspective of what a manager's responsibility and what a manager's work is. Um, Secondly, I think one of the other things that I found pretty challenging myself was to hold back and let the people in my team grow. When I say that, I mean that usually when we used to have these design reviews or critique sessions, right, and someone is presenting and they ask for feedback, I used to be the one person who was very excited to give people feedback and give them what I think about the product or the feature that they've been designing. But when you become a manager, you have to hold that itch back and let other people step up and rise to that occasion. And it's really awkward sometimes because everybody is quiet and everybody's waiting for someone else to speak up. And my manager actually told me that, hey, Vaibhav, I think you need to embrace these awkward silences and create those so that the people who are in your team actually feel awkward enough to step up and then answer. So you have to nudge people a little bit. And this has been a learning that I took, and I can see like my teammates really stepping up and helping each other now. And I think I still have a long way to go, and I'm still learning the nuances of being a good manager. But I'm really thankful to my team and my mentors to put that trust and that belief and that support in me to actually take this responsibility.
Yeah, I'm sure it must have been like a brilliant learning curve, right? So one thing
Mhm.
which I remember from reading things related to you being a design manager, right? Which is you're actually managing teams across multiple countries, right? Now,
Mhm.
what are like the challenges which comes there, like when you're working with teams across multiple countries? I'm not completely sure. My guess is like time zone definitely comes into play. If it's not the time
Mhm.
zone, sometimes even the language barrier, right? So I would definitely
Mhm.
love to know what these challenges are and how did you tackle them?
Mhm. So I think I became a manager during the pandemic. So my experience mostly revolves around remotely managing people and international teams. I've never really managed just local teams. So my experience is very limited to that. But yeah, I think the biggest challenge is that I've never physically met over half of the people I'm managing. Um, because we hired a lot more people during the pandemic was going on, and before pandemic we used to travel to Jakarta and Singapore and all these other countries very very often. And the problem now is that I have to actually build trust online. And it's not impossible to do that, but it's very, very hard because when you meet someone face to face, you get to know them. It's a lot more easier than doing it online. And it's not just about them trusting me or me trusting them. It's about building the trust as a team and a feeling of belongingness, feeling of safety, because that is the environment where creativity can foster, right? You don't really want people to be scared to make mistakes or scared to take chances because they feel that something will go wrong or it will negatively impact their performance. So I think that has been a big challenge, and how I try to solve is it that I try to be like that phone a friend lifeline for my team, and I just am available whenever they need me, and I have their back if anything goes wrong. I try to instill that confidence in them that if anything goes wrong, I am there with you, and you just go and explore and fly, and I'm here to have your back whenever you need me. So I think that sense of trust is what I've seen my managers put in me before. And I'm really thankful to that. Like even when I was moving from an IC to my manager actually um, really motivated me to do stuff, really pushed me to go and make mistakes and try out things and see if it works for me or not. And without that support, I think it would have been very hard for me to take this plunge. But yeah, I think that is something which is one of the primary responsibilities of a manager as well. And I try to uh, be that the rock for my team as well. Um, Second thing, which I feel uh, because of managing international teams is like, and I think it fairly relates to local teams as well, is that not everyone is like you. Everyone has different motivations. Everyone has different inhibitions. They have different dreams. They have different ways to communicate. So everyone is not going to open up very easily or have the same way of communicating that they're happy or are they're facing any challenge. So in my first few months as a manager, I used to feel that probably there are some people in my team who I'm not breaking through with, and probably they're not sharing things enough with me. Probably they didn't trust me enough, and I had this big imposter syndrome where I feel that I think I've been put in a position which is totally not uh, suited for me, or I'm not worthy of it. But yeah, I think my mentors and my managers taught me that it's not about that. Everyone communicates differently, and as a manager, you need to pick up on those subtle nudges on how someone is communicating that they're probably facing any difficulties or they're probably happy. Not everyone is going to come and give you a hug that hey, you're a great manager. You have to notice how these small things and the small gestures they do. And not everyone is also motivated the same way. Like there are people in my team who get motivated by say giving a very complex project because they like solving complex problems. There are people who get motivated by ownership, that hey, you go and you do this project yourself and you lead this thing, and they get really motivated by these things. And there are people who probably get motivated because they're gonna get to do a project with a friend or someone who they enjoy working with. So I think as a manager, you need to understand people, be it in the same country or be it in different geographies. And I have people all across the world now. We have one designer in Canada, one designer in South Korea, some in India, some in Indonesia. So yeah, it's spread across the globe, and I have to really understand them each as a person, and then basically cater all the help or support I can give according to that. So yeah, that has been mostly my learnings. Probably one other thing which is more prominent in the national teams is that people who are not there where your product is operating don't really get to see the impact firsthand. And seeing that impact actually gives you a sense of purpose. Like I remember the first time when I went to Indonesia, I was going from the airport to my hotel, and as I approached the city, I saw so many Gojek drivers, those green helmets, those green jackets, and taking people somewhere. Some were picking up food, some were taking packages. And it gave me such a warm-hearted feeling that, hey, wow, it's not just numbers that I'm moving. It's actually, there are so many people who are getting affected by the things I'm designing. And it was really a overwhelming experience for me. And I want my designers in different countries to experience that as well, which the pandemic has made super hard. Earlier on, we used to travel a lot. So what we try now is that we make sure our designers talk a lot to our users so that they see that, okay, there are real people behind the numbers that we're trying to move and the metrics we're trying to influence for the business. And our research team also helps with getting these stories out to the designers. And I think that has been very helpful to keep the team motivated and going on because they're actually making a difference in people's lives.
It was like really nice to know this, especially because like the just the culture aspect which you're describing about your team, just it feels so great. And at the same time, you have such a diverse team where everyone is spread across so many multiple countries. I mean that's just brilliant. Like it sounds like a dream team to me. With
Yeah.
especially the cultural aspects of the things where you talk about how you're making it uh, inclusive enough so that someone can come and pitch in their feedback. things like that. It's really nice, especially of you as a manager, to do that. Um, Something which kept coming up throughout our conversation now is, like, how you spoke about how your mentors and your manager who was probably mentoring you, right? And the whole concept of mentorship kept coming up, right? So I want to understand, like, what is the mentorship role which a design manager plays? And at the same time, you've been mentoring quite a few folks, I think through ADP list and etc. So
Mhm.
I would love to know how you're going about this, and what's your take on it in general, right? What do you think about mentorship? How do you think it should be approached by people? Both, like, probably
I
from
think
the designer side as well as, like, someone who's part of the team. Sorry, both from the design manager side as well as someone who's part of the team.
Mhm. Sure. I think I've basically give all the credit to whatever I'm doing to my managers and my mentors because I've seen them make their team their first priority always. And I also try to do that. Like processes are there, projects are there, giving them purpose is also there, but the team and caring about them should be the first priority. And safe to say, it's the part of the job which I enjoy the most, mentoring people, helping them, and I think that is very very interesting to me. And I put a lot of effort into it as well. The first designer I mentored was actually an intern here at Gojek. He was from my college, and the entire journey of guiding them, helping them overcome obstacles, challenging them to perform at their best, and then finally seeing them succeed was totally addictive. If I am very honest with you, and he has now joined us full time, and he was the first person I officially managed as well. So yeah, I feel mentoring skills are very very crucial for a manager because then not only you can help your team tackle their day-to-day challenges and focus on execution, which basically by definition is what a manager's job, but you can also help achieve them their long-term career goals and help them grow as a designer and as a person as well. And we do a lot of things to do that. Like I personally, as a manager, I have created like a detailed, actionable growth plan for each designer in my team, according to what they think their long-term career goals or short-term career goals are. And now, as a manager, it's my responsibility to ensure that I give them opportunities to achieve those goals. Like just setting goals and putting them on the wall is not enough. If I, as a manager, cannot provide them with the opportunities, then I'm not doing my job. And yeah, I think coming to ADP list, I came across it on LinkedIn, I think in 2020. And I read the heartwarming experiences of these mentees and the kind of supportive relationships that the platform promotes between mentors and mentees. And I think I wanted to do my bit to contribute as well because I know how much I in my career have benefited from having people to support me. So I know, like I remember when I was in college, I used to reach out to people on Facebook, like UI UX designers group or something like that, and I used to ask them that, hey, I want to learn UX, I want to learn UI, what should I do? And they used to tell me that, hey, I think you should learn HTML, CSS, and I was like, okay, I'll learn that as well. But yeah, I think um, getting proper mentorship actually gives you such a good kickstart in your career because you're learning from people who have made the same mistakes uh, that they have grown from, right? So I think it's very very important to uh, have a mentor or have a rock or have some role model who you can follow and then learn and grow from. So and this has basically been a very rewarding experience to me, for me as well, because along with the opportunity to guide these budding designers, I have also gotten a chance to reflect and improve my skills and be a better manager for my team. I take like 3 or 4 mentee sessions every week, and it's definitely a time commitment that I do. But it's so refreshing after long days of work. You go and talk to people who are so passionate about these things, and they're learning new things and have a lot of doubts, have a lot of queries. Someone says that, hey, I want to get into all the aspects of design. I want to do branding as well, and I want to do other things as well. And as a mentor or as someone who wants to help them, I don't always have the right answers. I always probably am not even the right person to help them. But I think with my experience, what I can do is I can point them to the right direction. that hey, sometimes I connect them to my colleagues or some people that sometimes I connect people to even my mentors as well, so that they can get that right guidance. And I think it has been a very very nice journey for me. And not to mention like being a small part of someone's joy when they land their dream job. It's priceless, least to say.
Yeah, I mean, I totally understand the part about providing the right direction, because I think that's something I've always expected from anyone who has ever mentored me, is to provide direction. Um because I'm someone who actually, always tends to learn something on my own, and the kind of direction which mentors usually have from years of their experience is like totally invaluable. So I think that's like amazing. At the same time, I've spoken to few people you have mentored on ADP list as well. It's uh, I mean, they only have great things to say about you. So I'm sure, if someone wants to probably have like a mentorship call with you, I'll probably attach the link also below. And I hope
Sure.
you will be able to help them as well, right? Uh,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, it's very refreshing to hear these stories about you, how you have been helping junior designers as well. So moving forward, the probably one of the last few questions I have for you is so you were an individual contributor, then you moved to being a design manager. So I'm sure there would be some few things where it's expectation versus reality. So what were some of the misconceptions you probably had about design leadership before you became a design manager, and how did this affect you? Now, like, my perspective, or my idea behind this question is someone, if someone who's listening to this um is thinking about becoming a design manager someday, probably they have the similar misconceptions. So probably if we could squash them, or if we could highlight them, I think that would be great.
Yeah, actually, that's a very interesting question. And I think leadership is widely misunderstood across the globe, at least from my perspective. I'm only talking from my experience, and there may be a lot of people who have that concept very clear, but I didn't. So I think one of the biggest misconceptions about leadership is the very core essence of it. A lot of people feel that once you're 4 or 5 years into the career, someone is going to wave a magic wand and you're to become a leader, or someone is going to promote you and you're going to become a leader, which is really not true. It's not a rank, it's not a position, and it doesn't really come with experience or skill. Like you can be the most skilled designer in the world and not be a leader. Like Hulk is probably the strongest Avenger, but Captain America is the leader, right? So it doesn't have to do with your skill or your strength or anything like that. I feel leadership is an attitude. It's in choice. It's a choice, and you become a leader the day you decide to be one and act on it. Like can't help but quote Simon Sinek on this because he's like the leadership guru or whatever. But leadership is not about being in charge. It's about taking care of those who are in your charge. And I think that really highlights the core essence of it, which is around empathy and relationships and helping people who are around you. It's, I feel, a little bit like parenting. Like your primary job as a parent is to care about your kids, right? And I think it is very similar to what a leader needs to do. You have to inspire, you have to remove barriers, you have to do all these other things too. But that genuine care and that doing it not because you have to, but you because you want to, I think that really comes first. And similar to a parent, I think a leader may not have all the answers. They may not solve all your problems. They might not be the best person there, but they are gonna be the person who is gonna be with you to face it. They're gonna have your back, and that's what a real leader does. And anyone can be that. And I'm lucky to have a team which actually has so many of these leadership traits. Like they always have each other's back. They go the extra mile to be there for each other. They mentor, they guide, they help, and sometimes even take up extra work to take the load off one another. And I think these are all really, really good leadership traits. And I'm so proud of them to actually have this sort of an attitude with them. And yeah, I think management and leadership overlaps on a lot of aspects. But yeah, it's never too soon to start, I think. The day you think that you are ready to take up additional responsibilities, or the day you take your first step as a leader, and you firstly need to observe basically people around you, the problems they're facing, the challenges they're facing. And I think you need to just think of various ways to help them out. And it's a journey, it's not a final position that you reach. So yeah, I think that's what I think about it. It might be biased, or it might be very limited to what my experience has been, but I think it's a little idealistic too. But yeah, I think leaders kind of need to be a little idealistic.
Yeah, true. I mean, it's a wonderful insight as well. I like how you made it so simple and easy for someone to consume that. But yeah, it's really nice of you. Yeah, anyways, we have actually almost reached the end of the episode, and I usually end my episodes by asking a few rapid fire questions. So whenever you're ready, we can get started.
I'm super bad at rapid fire, but yeah, shoot.
Okay. So I'll probably keep the first question very simple then. Your favorite game?
My favorite game is Dota 2. I don't think if you can see it here. This one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Generalist or specialist?
I started as a generalist, but now I think specialist.
Okay. Your favorite designer?
This is a very hard question. So I think I'll probably answer it in three parts. If you talk about like the favorite design manager, I think Yuri Zhu, because I've learned a lot from her. And if you want to talk about the actual core art of design, then I think Aaron Walter. He used to work with Mailchimp and InVision, and he wrote a book around
Yeah.
designing with emotions and all. And I think it has really inspired me. That and Don Norman's emotional design. I think those have been the books which really changed the way I used to design. Mind blown. And probably in terms of physical product design, I've been really fascinated with Dyson. And like, I think my parents are more happier because I'm the one who is taking that vacuum cleaner and cleaning everything. Like, my dog sheds a lot, and just the how good that product is designed and how usable it is, it's very, very nice.
Great. So I'll just move to the last question, which is one career advice you would give to a junior designer.
I think for me, if I could look back and see myself and then probably give them that advice, I would probably advise them to find someone who can guide you a little bit more sooner. Because I've seen the kind of impact and the kind of push you receive, or the kind of support you receive when there is someone who has some sort of a stake in your success or stake in your growth. So find a mentor. If you cannot find a mentor outside, talk to your managers, talk to people, and ask them for guidance. And I think mentor and mentee is a relationship that both of these parties need to foster together. And you both have to put in effort and put in time to actually maintain this relationship. So if you're looking for a mentor, I think make sure that you harbor this relationship. It's not just about taking like a 30-minute session on ADP list, or probably just watching a YouTube video. It's basically about talking to that person, telling them about yourself, being vulnerable, talking about your challenges. And then if that person also reciprocates, and then this is going to be a very, very fruitful relationship for both of you, because the manager is going to learn how to give feedback and how to help people, and which is going to help them enhance their mentorship skills. And you are going to get a lot more insights and a lot of things that you probably will learn way down the line if you learn it yourself. So yeah, I think I wish ADP list launched 7 8 years sooner. I would have been in a much better place.
Yep, yep, yep. Anyways, we have actually reached the end of the episode. It has been an amazing episode, and I am totally glad I waited for so many months to get you on the show. It was totally worth it. This conversation was so refreshing, and at the same time, such amazing and beautiful insights, right? So I had a wonderful time talking to you, and I'm so glad you accepted the invite. I hope you had a good time as well, talking about all the
Uh,
things.
yeah. I think I have goosebumps talking about and looking back through my entire journey, and yeah, it has been a very good experience to meet you. I'm so glad you called me here and I did this.
Yeah, I'm so happy you accepted the invite, man. I I I mean, I was actually very unsure you would accept invite, but because I think at that point of time, I think I had just two episodes when I first reached out to you, two or three episodes. So I was very unsure if you would accept invite, but I'm so glad you did, and I'm so glad it all of this worked out.
uh, thanks to you for making this happen. Thank you.
Great, Vaibhav. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you so much for tuning in. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe to Product Stories for more such episodes.